Good morning. Welcome to Midnight Muse. My name is Edmund Chabot. Hope you're having a comfortable, quiet evening at home watching TV. We'll try to either soothe you down or liven you up depending on what you need. We're going to talk to Liliane Atlan and Colette Berger. Liliane is a most amazing writer and thinker. She's here from Paris, recently was at the Iowa workshop, the Iowa Writers Workshop, and she seems to be an international woman of letters. She's working right now at the Ubu Repertory Company on a reading of an opera that is, what should we call it? No one seems to be able to name this opera, but it's a multimedia kind of event using the new technologies. The opera takes place in the future and is transported through videotape and computers to the concentration camp of Terezin in Czechoslovakia during World War II. And it's just an amazing mix of ideas and languages and technologies.
Moi, descendante de rabbins et de rabbines grecques, grand-mère réfractaire au porc, ayant vécu à l'ombre de tabernacles pendant plus de 20 ans, un Dieu assoiffé et inquiet dans les veines, j'attends dans une chambre de bonne mon amant, les seins nus sous ma robe de prières anciennes, le cul ouvert, grossière, grossière, coasse, révoltée dans mon sang et par ma bouche mes ancêtres. Je les calme en chantant dans une langue plus douce qu'aucune langue maternelle. Une langue où la sueur n'est pas grossière, où les cuisses, la salive, le soleil, le lait fusionnent, créant l'éclair qui ressource. Qui vivrait s'il n'y avait que la douceur des fêtes, s'il n'y avait pas le manque, les paradis de paille? Ils sont vrais puisqu'ils flambent. L'amour élémentaire.
Elemental love.
Ni de toi ni de moi, il ne restera rien.
Nothing will remain of us.
Nous serons lentement devenus la montagne, où vivant nous marchions, brusquement séparés, deux murs se faisant face. Le silence fondait sur nous comme un oiseau de proie, et la maison gardait son nom de paradis, comme un nom incrusté dans la pierre résiste.
We will slowly become the mountain where living we would walk, suddenly separate, two opposing walls. Silence would swoop down on us like a bird of prey. And the house kept its name, Paradise, like a word firmly encrusted on a stone.
Nous serons devenus le code secret du sable, ce secret d'amour désormais sans histoire, imprimé dans les dunes, les palmiers, les nuages, dans la chair des montagnes, dans la chair des étoiles.
We will become sand's secret code, this love secret now without history, imprinted in dune, in palm trees and clouds. In the flesh of the mountains, in the stars' flesh.
Nous serons ce désir qui ne se connaît pas, contenu dans le feu, dans le sang, dans les pierres, dans tout ce qui respire et dans les ossements, porté par un amour anonyme, élémentaire.
We will be this desire unknown to itself, hidden in fire, blood and stone, in all that breathed and in the bones, born by a nameless, elemental love.
Thank you, Colette Berger and Liliane Atlan. It's just a joy for me to be able to listen to that. When I hear those poems, even if I can see it printed up on the screen, sometimes I just don't read along, but just listen because I can take so much from especially a good reading. Tell me now, those were written by Liliane, yes? And the two of you sort of collaborated on the reading. Is that what it is?
Well, Liליאן read a paragraph, and I read the English version of it.
Mm-hmm. And so the next, perhaps I should just introduce my guest. This is Liliane Atlan, who is immediately to my right in the center of Colette and I, who's here from Paris, who's been touring the United States, Iowa City, and now New York, and is a poet and a playwright and a performance writer and a writer for the new technologies. And next to Liliane is Colette Berger, who I believe hails originally from
Paris.
and who now works with the Ubu Repertory Company in Soho. Is that correct?
Yeah, on the reading of the opera that Liliane
as well
wrote.
as now collaborating with Liliane, more than just as a facilitator of this, but a real collaborator on the work of a project of hers that's going to be coming up in the near future.
Yes.
And so I'd like to talk about the opera that you're working on and about your poetry, but I'm anxious to find out about Edmond Javès. Javès, is that how you pronounce it?
Edmond Javès. I know him personally. And when we met for the first time, he told me, excuse my English please, he told me...
No, he didn't say that to you.
No, I am saying now, excuse my English, because he told me in French, il s'est mis en danger, I endangered myself. And to write, really, you have to endanger yourself. I am writing in such a way that I could write a bad book, he told me. And I felt very close to him because of that, because I have also the feeling that I endanger myself because I feel so strongly that a long time ago that to express what is happening now in the world, the old means, the regular means of communication or expressing one are not enough. So it's difficult to speak like that.
Okay, I'm going to discuss these things a little bit more with Liliane and Colette in a moment. But first, I just want to take a quick break. We're going to get a cup of coffee. You get a cup of coffee. We'll all be right back. Liliane Atlan and Colette Berger are collaborating on an opera that Liliane wrote. And when I heard about this, a man named Frédéric Berthet first mentioned a couple of months ago Liliane's work to me. And he said, there's a woman who's interested in fiber optics. She's a writer for fiber optique. I said, she writes for fiber optics? What is that? And so I said, well, me too. The first thing I said when he told me she writes for fiber optics is I said, so do I. And I do my work. I write for cable television. I write for broadcast. I write for the stage. Performance art. We perform in clubs all over town, 8BC area, places like that. And I said, well, tell me, how does Liliane write for fiber optics? And he said, well, I don't know exactly, but she's very interested in the new technologies. And he seemed so excited about this, but not quite able to explain, you know, how it is. So some months later, lo and behold, I get a call from Cassandra Kenfield, who's been contacted by Liliane Atlan, who's in town. And Cassandra says, well, Liliane is coming to a poetry reading at the Ear Inn. Why don't you get a chance to talk to her? So I said, well, I've been hearing about your fiber optic writing. How do you do that? And she said, I'm writing an opera that takes place in the 20th century, and it uses all the new technologies. And this opera takes place long after the 20th century, in the 30th century, so in the distant future. And they find videotapes and computers and things that somehow show them what went on in a concentration camp of Terezin in Czechoslovakia. And that this future opera taking place in the concentration camp of Terezin takes place in the form of a Seder.
I would like first
to correct all the mistakes that I just made. Yes. Good.
That first, I don't write for optic fibers. I write for paper. It's much more interesting.
Good.
And I just wanted to tell the story of musicians who were detained in a little city in Garrison, which is Terezin, in Czechoslovakia, and through them many people, Jews and non-Jewish, were detained in this city, and after that they were killed in Auschwitz. And I did not know how to tell this story, and I cannot, in 2 minutes, we will explain it much better at the U-Boot Theatre. And the 13th, January the 13th, we invite the people who are listening to us now, because it is very difficult in a few words, in direct. I never did that. When I tell the story of these musicians, I tell it to people that I see, because I don't tell it as in the vague. And the new means of communication, for example, if we could now use them, we could, you see us, but we could see you also, and we could have a real link, as when you tell story in a room to real people that you see, really. So it could be completely different, and we will do it. Colette, Berger and me, and Ryan also. We will do it in January 13 at the U-Boot Theatre. So what I would like to say now, just that the archaic form of récit telling that I know, the Seder, the Jewish Seder, is a ritual of a kind of a way to tell story, to tell story in such a way that it is not a story that we live it again.
That's a celebration as well as a telling of a story? It
is not a celebration in a solemnal meaning. It is, we will be, during a whole night, these musicians who were detained in, in Theresienstadt and who created, as soon as they could do it, they played music, they created the theater, and they wrote
well, it's inside
poetry,
of a concentration camp.
Inside of the concentration camp, and they, if they were caught doing that, they were killed, just killed, and they did it, and they were sent to the unknown, as they said, and they sang for themselves, on themselves, the Requiem of Verdi. And until their death at 50 meters of the gas chamber, most of them sang to keep alive what they called la forme divine, the divine print, the form divine inside, which is etched inside us. And the idea of the science fiction about what you spoke at the beginning is it is just the first step to enter into this story, which will be lived by us as a ritual of initiation. Help me, Colette.
No,
I think that was
I think that's pretty
eloquent.
pretty
If you write as well as you speak on television, I think you're going to be a great writer. I think we've got it made. We've found a new opera. I understood exactly what you said. Whatever difficult you may have had in English, you certainly expressed your heart perfectly clearly.
But the music of the word is really important also, because if I use the new means of communications, and it's true that I'm sure that the oral poetry will survive thanks to this new means of communication, I am also sure that it must be a real poetry made of words written with blood, with your own blood when you are writing, of course. And
I mostly agree. There's not much I can add to it.
I think you pretty much floored us with that. If somebody out there would like to call up and contribute to this conversation, feel free to giving us a buzz.
The only thing I can add is that I read a lot of plays, and they are very good plays, but there are very few plays that try to make the invisible visible. It's not my phrase. That kind of thing, which puts you on another level. Still with human beings, I mean, it's really real human beings that are there, but on another level. And I think it's very important, and I need, a lot of other people need to fight for that. Is that clear at all?
No, that's perfectly clear to me. I think one of the things Colette said to me when we were talking about this is that the people who were in this concentration camp of Terezin wanted that Colette was explaining. We were sitting in the ear in at this like downtown art bar, and she's explaining that she went and the people in Terezin didn't have photographs, they didn't have ways of communicating to the outside world that they were prisoners, and that they would get little pieces of paper, because they didn't have 8.5 by 11 sheets of paper, and they would get these pieces of paper and get artists to draw their, I hope I understood this correctly, to draw their profile, and so that they would have a picture of them there. And then they would have to hide these pictures, so they couldn't just carry them around, because if they were discovered, they'd be taken away. And so that the people were, there was an art community, a community of painters and drawers living in this concentration camp in Czechoslovakia, and correct me if I'm wrong, Lilian, she took the reproductions of these photos and just kept them in her apartment in Paris for a year while she wrote this opera, and lived with the people who actually had lived this experience that she was writing about.
I did that just because I don't read German. I was unable to read what they call the Bible of Terezin, wrote by Adler, a survivor of Terezin, because he wrote the book in German. So I had to do what I can do. In English, a book which was published in Czechoslovakia in English, because the Jewish were not allowed to tell their own story
in Czechoslovakia?
In Czechoslovakia.
Today, when? In the 20th?
In 62, something like
1962.
that. So, yes. So I read it, and at the beginning I thought I will use the drawings as documents, and they were in my là où je travaille, in le bureau, my office,
working desk,
my desk. And I began to see them, and to see them alive, and people just 2 centimeters began to be alive, and it reminded me that Miriam Novich wrote in a book called Art in the Concentration Camps, Spiritual Resistance. She wrote that people in the ghettos, not only in Terezin, told the painters, please paint us. We will live at least on paper.
Please paint us so that we'll live on paper?
So, yes. And it is what happened. And this new kind of dramaturgy that we call théâtre en étoile came out from that. And also something very important, we will not have any audience. All the people celebrating the ritual of the opera, because it is a ritual, it is not an opera. It's a ritual called the ritual of the opera because music was the spine of the life in the ghetto. We will celebrate it during a whole night, here and here and here in New York, in many places, in Paris, at the same time, in many languages, and we will be connected all together.
Do we have someone who'd like to comment on this or anything we've spoken about at all this evening? Phil, are you on the phone?
Yes, I am. You started the conversation talking about fiber optics, and it seems as if you've gotten away from it, and I'm really kind of interested about what that has to do with the opera and the other forms of electronic.
Well, I think fiber optics are a medium just like the piano is a medium, and I think that what Liliane is doing is using the most modern means to tell the most ancient story. And I find, and the reason that's so interesting to me as somebody who writes for performance, whether it's performance on a stage or on television or in any other, in a punk club on the Lower East Side, the reason, what's important to me is telling that ancient story, and yet we can't start speaking in rhyme, iambic, pentameter, because that's the way Shakespeare sometimes wrote.
Yeah.
And we can't, and when a new medium is developed, such as television, I know a large number of my friends are writers, and very many of them put down the new media. They say, oh, I wouldn't write for television, I wouldn't write for fiber optics, I wouldn't write for Hollywood, and I think that those people are unnecessarily excluding themselves from where the world is going. Would you write with a typewriter? Would you write with a fountain pen? Or do you think we should use a quill pen is the response I give to these people?
I agree with you, Edmund, but I would like to add that I did not know anything about the fiber optic. I just had the idea to write, to transmit the story of these musicians, and the fact that I did it as a seder made obvious and necessary to use the interactive way of communication. Optic fiber, visio conference, the word or the technique itself is not important. The important fact is to be able to be together even if we are far away from each other, and also to create a new kind of theater. That is to say, we are together here, many people alive together and connected with other people being together but far away from us, and to speak to each other, to see each other. And this idea came to me when the men for the first time went to the moon, and we were gathering in Central Park in Paris at the planetarium, and all of us were looking at together. It was, well,
Phil, are you still with us?
Yeah.
What is your interest in, I have two questions. What is your interest in fiber optics?
Well, not fiber optics
Or
particularly,
new
but I'm
technologies,
an engineer, and I'm just kind of interested, and I do a lot of sound for theater, and
Well, I'm sorry, a lot of sound?
sound for theater.
So you do have an interest in the arts as well as technology?
Yeah, and so I'm very interested in the way the two are kind of married, and the idea interests me very much. Am I correct in assuming that this opera is going to be going on in different places at the same time, and that people are going to be interacting through the technology in that way?
Yes. Yes,
Colette,
absolutely. It's supposed ultimately to happen in different cities at the same time. And the cities are going to be connected with these fiber optics so we could see each other and act on each other. Not only see each other, but there's going to be an effect on every person participating because they are seeing other people and they are seen by other people. Instead of having 100 people or 1,000 or 3,000 people, hopefully there's going to be a lot more involved.
Would you just, Phil, there's going to be a reading of this opera before the full production. The Ubu Repertory Company in Soho in Manhattan is going to tell me, Colette, read it, stage it, what is it going to do?
Read excerpts of the text in a translation that is not definitive and explain what goes in between, and hopefully show some of the picture, the drawings we were talking about.
When and where can I do this, see this? When is the reading going to be?
It's the 13th at Ubu Repertory Theater, is 139 Mercer.
Okay, so I can look it up in the phone book if I forget the address.
Yes.
Ubu Repertory Company.
Ubu Repertory Theater.
The 13th of this month.
Yes.
All right. Phil, stay on the line. I'd like to, if you have the time, I'm kind of have a big interest in where technology and art, and there's such a stormy marriage, you call it a marriage, it seems to me. I don't know why it is, but we have Sally on the line. Sally, do you have
Hi.
Yes, hi.
I was very interested, Liliane, in your choice of a ritual meal, a seder, as a setting for this play. I know there's been a lot of talk about theater as ritual. I'm curious about your own feelings about ritual, what it expresses about us, both collectively and individually, whether it's some sort of religious ritual or a cultural ritual. Have you used this imagery before in any of your other work? And if so, how?
I'm not sure to have understood.
Would you help us with the question?
Because
Vous
of
êtes français?
Oui, bien sûr.
Ça m'intéressait beaucoup que vous avez choisi un rituel, le seder, quand on dit le repas rituel, où vous avez placé votre pièce. Je sais qu'il y a beaucoup de pensées sur le théâtre comme rituel, mais je veux savoir si vous avez choisi un rituel religieux, culturel, spécifiquement parce que vous avez trouvé que ça a quelque chose à exprimer sur nous, les individuels, ainsi que nous collectivement. Si ça exprime quelque chose de nos caractères, nos personnalités.
I thank you for this question, and I will try to answer, to tell you the truth. I celebrated personally the Seder as soon as I was born, but very soon I felt the need to connect in a way. I did not know in which way. The miracles of the Exodus of Egypt and the extermination of the Jews. But I did not know how to do it, and I forgot it. And during a long time, I just wanted to forget about it. And I even wrote something called Leçons de bonheur, lessons in happiness. And the idea to write the opera as a Seder came to me just as in an instinctive and physical way. I did not know how to write the opera, because it is just impossible to write a play about people having done so extraordinary theater in so exceptional conditions, and 5%, just 5% of them survived. So it's impossible to make an historical reconstruction or to even know exactly what happened. And it was impossible to write it, and I wanted to do it, and I did not know how to do it. And I was thinking about stopping writing. I just felt very unable to do it. And it came to me to get up and to get up and to clean my house, as we do before, as the Jewish people do for the nettoyage de Pesach, the cleaning of before Pesach, before the Seder. And I don't do it, I did not do it in a religious way. I stopped doing that, and I did it. During 2 weeks or 3 weeks, I did it, and I did not know why I did it. And suddenly I was like paralyzed, and I saw the tables. I saw people celebrating celebrating the story of these musicians of Theresienstadt as a Seder, people around tables, before having before them a glass of wine and the libretto, and a narrator at each table, guest, and 4 children. And I saw also a kind of hearse coming, drawn by human beings, as it was in Theresienstadt. So it came to me in a very instinctive way. After that, I could think about it and make the things more rational.
Let me just interrupt here for a moment. Phil, I hope you can hang out for a little while, because I'd like to talk to you about technology, but I think we have to pursue a little bit this important thing that Sally brought up. And before we even do that, we have to pursue a little bit of business, and then we're going to talk some more about this opera and translation. So stand right by. All right, we're talking with Liליאן Atlan and with Colette Berger, and with Phil and Sally, if they're still on the line.
Hi.
Hi. About opera in the form of a Seder that Liליאן has written. In very short words, Sally, could you sort of restate that question that you asked to Liליאן for me again?
Yeah, I was curious as to why she had picked ritual. I feel myself that ritual is a kind of a thread that connects us both to our individual past, to our cultural past.
Well, I wish we could have all our guests on at the same time.
Okay, sorry.
No, I'm not. Don't apologize. Just forgive me for interrupting, but I get so excited I have to talk on here, and you may all feel free to interrupt. But exactly why ritual and performance and drama and the importance of poetry is very interesting to me. I was speaking earlier with Toby McLennan, who talks about ritual with not necessarily what we think of as the new technologies, videotape and computers, but she did a performance piece in which people first put on masks of animals and things. I'm sure she's going to correct me when she comes on and correct my interpretation of her work, but first they put on these masks and things because they wanted to become one with masks in primitive times, and now we wear toasters, or one might think of wearing toasters and refrigerators and things like that because you want to become one with the technology, and how that we ritually adapt ourselves to the things that concern us most, and the other things that don't concern us but impinge on our life.
Yeah, but theater comes out of ritual anyway.
Yeah, but what I would like to say is that we have ritual all the time. I mean, each time you go to a theater, whatever is the play, there's a ritual.
Oh no, I've been to a theater where there was no ritual. I'm sorry to say. It's called bad.
No, but very few. I mean, you sit down for a meal, it's a ritual. You put on your makeup before going out, it's a ritual. Everything, it's a ritual to try to pin down or put some kind of an order to things which are very difficult to deal with. So you have these little or big rituals all the time.
Well, now you see, I have several friends who think that these rituals are, when they use the word ritual, they use it in a pejorative sense. When they say ritual, they mean some old, archaic, dumb thing that their mother made them do because she wanted to control them in some way.
I think there's a way of using the word, whether it's good or bad, I don't know. But I know I'm full of rituals, certain things I do.
Well, but do you think maybe you're just living a decadent life, and that's why you have these rituals?
Probably, but that's. But I think people who do not live that decadent life have their own rituals.
I see. So you say that the human will fall into the ritual form.
We need rituals, whether it's animist or whatever it is. It's ritual to try to control that.
Can I kick in?
Yes, but in the excuse me to interrupt, but in the ritual of the Seder, something is very particular. Because it is that we don't play anything. We just, through words, we just sing, chant. We just use words. We make odd things to awake the interest of children, and for children, the wise, the wicked, the simple, and so on, ask questions, and the adults try to answer how it was, but it is not played. And the only thing you see during the Seder is we see each other. And finally, all together, we live and we relive again as if it was right now. We live something from which happened in the past, and which is something, it is our own history seen as a legend. And it is what I wanted to try to do, or to begin to do, to see what happened 40 years ago, at the beginning not as a fairy tale, of course, but something that we live to understand, to find out something which will help us to be alive inside and to resist.
Let me just interrupt here for a moment. We got two calls. People, please feel free to call back and actually converse with us if you like, but somebody wanted to know if the reading at the UBU Rep was open to the public, and somebody wanted to know how to reach Liliane Atlan. Well, you can write to me up here or write to Liliane here. I'll put the address up in a second. But first, I'm going to ask Colette to tell us, yes, I understand it is open to the public?
It is open to the public.
Is there a charge?
No, you call and you make a reservation.
Okay, so we can see whatever, as for the reading of this at the UBU Rep on the date is?
The 13th.
January 13th?
Yes.
Okay.
It's a Monday.
Okay, good. And there is no charge. So you can find that out from phone, UBU Rep, January 13th. Come, it's free. I bet you'd like it. And if you want to write to Colette or Lilian or myself, or to any of the other guests we have here tonight, you can write. This address may have a bibliography tag onto it. You can write to that too. But the address here is Manhattan Cable Television, Midnight Muse, MCTV or Manhattan Cable TV, 120 East 23rd Street, New York 10010. If you write to the Midnight, you can write Lilian Atlan, Midnight Muse, or you can write to me in care of Lilian. Atlan is A-T-L-A-N, I think is how that's spelled. And if you drop us a note, I'll certainly see that Lilian gets it, and if you'd like, I'll certainly drop you a bibliography of the works published and unpublished that have been discussed tonight. Do we have any callers on the phone?
I'm still here.
Sally, oh good, I'm glad Sally's still with us.
I just had one last question for Liliane. I wanted to know if she had used this imagery of the rituals, the thread of the ritual life in any of her other works.
Have you used the ritual life in any of your other theater work or poetry work?
Or prose work?
No, but I write in a French influenced,
Impregnated
by the music of the traditional Hebraic texts, at such a point that I could translate poems written in Hebrew into French, and it was for me easy to do it. In spite of, yes, the French and the Hebrew languages are completely different and without any relation.
I say thank you very much. We're looking forward to seeing your work.
Thank you, Sally. Phil is probably still holding on. Phil, are you sticking with us here?
Yes, I am.
Okay, great. If you feel you'd like to, kind of say something.
Oh, I've been enjoying the conversation.
Chime right in. Good. If your hand doesn't get tired holding the phone, that's great. At some point, we're going to swing back around, maybe with our next guest. We have two interesting people coming up later on in a very short while, Andrei Velshkevich and a lady from Canada, Toby McLennan, and I think they have kind of a take on this problem as well. Could we possibly, could you tell us a little bit about the opera, and could you maybe read, we had spoken earlier about reading the last song of the opera. What's the name of this opera? Does it have a name yet? Does the opera?
Opera for Terezin.
Opera for Terezin?
Yes.
Okay, and could you kind of introduce, you'd said maybe you'd do a reading of the last poem, the last song in the Seder?
Yes, well, Lilian would explain it much better than I do, but at the end of the night, when everything has been lived through the night, what has been said in a different way and lived is kind of sung by little girls, I think, with an instrument, playing the lyre.
Uh-huh.
And they sing what has been this adventure, legend, ordeal, whatever. They sing that. I think it's a very special music that we can't give. And we're going to read that, but I think you have to imagine that it's read by a lot of people in a lot of languages.
Uh-huh.
And we're just going to be the two of us doing it.
Okay, so we'll try to hear 1,000 voices. And you're just going to, so now, and is this how the opera closes? We're going to try to maybe show some slides of the people and of the paintings that were in Terezin while you read this.
Maybe we could explain that during the fourth overture, that is to say from 5 in the morning to 7, the children perform the ritual of the drawings and the legends. That is to say that they take the drawings, the authentic drawings painted in Terezin by the authentic artists, and they look at them. They look at them in such a way that they begin to be alive, and we hear the paper, we hear even the wind and so on. And at the end, we see the hand of a child writing the legend of the drawing, and they will have found 10 plagues, the 10 plagues of Therezin. And what we will read, Colette and me now, it is all what we had to live during the whole night, but now it will be sung as the beginning of a legend. Des survivants, sauvés non par leur Dieu, mais par hasard, tombèrent dans la plus grave mélancolie. Leurs petits-enfants leur racontaient leur propre histoire, comme si elle était déjà une légende, comme si elle était déjà une légende.
As if it were already legend.
Il y avait une fois des passants.
Once upon a time,
Ils traversaient les temps et les empires.
passers-by. They passed through empires
Où qu'ils
and times.
passent, quoi qu'ils vivent,
Wherever they passed,
ils se
whatever they
réveillaient
lived,
pour dire « Nous
they
sommes nés
awakened
pour
to
autre
say,
chose, nous sommes
We
nés
were
pour
born
autre
for other
chose.
things. We were born for other things. »
Une fois l'an, ils
Once a
revivaient
year,
en la
by
racontant
recounting the story,
leur
they
naissance
relived their
miraculeuse dans des
birth,
temps reculés.
miraculous, so long ago.
La mer s'ouvrait pour les
The
sauver,
sea opened to save
le
them.
désert
The
parlait
desert spoke to
pour
guide
les
them.
guider.
They were given
Un livre de vie leur
a
était
book
donné.
of life.
À Therezin, malgré les 10 plaies,
At
le
Therezin,
sable, la vermine,
despite the
le
10
typhus,
plagues,
les
the
mouches,
sand, the vermin,
les
the
tueurs,
typhus,
la
the
faim,
flies,
les
the
vols,
killers,
les
the
gens,
hunger, the
la
theft,
peur, la
the
mort
people, the
massive.
fear, the mass death.
Des musiciens
The
jouèrent,
musicians played,
presque sans instruments,
almost without instruments,
des quatuors, des opéras.
quartets, operas.
Ils devaient souvent
They often
reconstituer
needed to make new
les orchestres
orchestras
à cause des
because of
transports.
the transports.
Ils allèrent à la mort en chantant pour eux-mêmes
They went
le
to the
requiem.
deaths, singing the requiem for themselves.
Quelques-uns survécurent,
A few
certains devinrent
survived.
fous,
Some
d'autres
went
se
mad,
tuèrent,
others killed themselves
tuèrent.
or killed.
mais la plupart,
But most
à nouveau,
played
jouèrent.
again.
En créant, ils réveillaient la sagesse du cœur, le goût de vivre, le don d'aimer.
Creating, they awakened the wisdom of the heart, the taste for life, the gift of love. We drank the fourth glass, till daybreak we sing the song we like, the song we love.
One of the reasons I agreed to do this show when Fred Sicone, the program director of Manhattan Cable TV, asked me to do this was because I knew that he wanted, and I thought that I could, bring some sense of performance and performance literature that has integrity and soul and aiming for transcendent human things. And even now, as I talk about them, I bog down into a certain ritualistic language that sometimes loses its meaning. But I knew what I was aiming at when I agreed to do the Midnight Muse. And I'd like to thank Lilian and Colette for helping me realize, perhaps to the best I've been able to in some time, those goals and those ambitions when I took on this program. I don't think that television has to be fluff, and I don't think that theater has to be silly. And I think that there are a few of us out there who are working on meaningful work, and I certainly think that the two of you are. So I'd like to thank you both very much for being here with me tonight. I'd like to thank those of you who are watching. We're not stopping, but we're just going to go to a commercial, and then we're going to come back and talk to Andreev and Toby about the work they've been doing. First, I'd just like once again, before we go to the commercial, to thank Lilian Atlan and Colette Berger for their work with us tonight.